All right, so for y'all listeners who don't know, the month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And today we got Mr. Alphonso Nathan, a Black male therapist, author, and vice president of Brightside Counseling and Psychiatric Private Practices in Philadelphia area. As a speaker, he speaks specifically on Black trauma, Black men healing, and cultural appropriation in the workplace. Mr. Nathan works with a variety of organizations that give free mental health care to underprivileged communities of America. Let's give a warm We Talk Weekly welcome to Mr. Alphonso Nathan.
Hey, my brother, how are you?
I can't complain. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
I'm sorry about it. It was so crazy. Like everything was going well, and then it started lagging a little bit. I'm like, oh no, I got good internet right here. I don't know what was going on, but we got this taken care of. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No doubt. It happens all the time. Someone said blessings back at you. And so let's talk a little bit about first before we get into, it said Brightside. Is that any relation or connection to the early learning child care center?
No, it's not.
Brightside Academy?
It's a different entity. Brightside Counseling. We
he went out again.
Oh my God.
That's all right.
It's just one of those days, I think.
Yeah.
Y'all remember that movie? I think it was like I remember when I was little. It was called like Ghost in the Machine or something like that. Something crazy.
Ghost in the Machine. My brother.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on.
It's not you. It's the internet.
It's a ghost in the machine.
If it happens again, I'm gonna switch my device. Maybe that it might be that, you know what I mean? But I have good connection. My apologies.
No, not a problem at all. Sometimes it happens like that, but I definitely want to jump right into the conversation because I think the idea of mental health and healing and just the mental challenges that we all face as, just a people of color, right? Not to mention just the brothers. And I'm not sure if you remember the incident that happened with the gentleman who was diagnosed with mental health issues and were unfortunately shot by the police. And it's just oh man, it's all right. So there you go. That's trauma right there. That's trauma right there. So I'm sure he's going to switch. He's going to switch and jump onto another unit. But I think it's a great conversation for us to start having when it comes to mental health. There's such a stigma on people of color and, being able to go into an office, being able to talk to a therapist, a counselor.
Have you ever been to a therapist?
One question that I would have for him is why? Oh, I hear you just jump right back on. Let me sing.
Yeah,
there we go.
I switched platforms, so maybe this might be a little bit better. So I think
it seems clear.
Yeah. I don't know what happened. Again, I just switched it over. So sorry.
Okay.
Continue.
Not a problem at all. Well, you jump right back on because we was just having a little conversation as it relates to stigma that I believe the Black community has, right? It's this, I want to say, this cloud over a certain demographic when it comes to being able to vent and talk to someone. You're kind of looked at as, or we look at them as, it must be something wrong with them, or you're not supposed to talk to them. You should talk to your family, keep the business in the household. But when it comes to people who doesn't necessarily look like us, you hear about them getting help, talking to counselors every day. Why do you think that is?
Absolutely. I mean, it's for generations. It's been generations of just having that stigma that we have to keep everything under the rug, or what would usually happen is we usually either pray it out, talk, or talk it to our elders, but you know it's never it's definitely not effective when some people are actually having some real mental health issues.
Right.
I mean, and a lot of times, I know I come from a West African family,
Okay.
mental health was like that was uncalled for, was unheard of. So what would happen is, they would feel like, there is like a crazy issue, like, you're crazy, like, you're foaming out the mouth, whenever you're talking about mental health. But
Right.
what we're trying to do year and a half, 2 years is really trying to break that stigma, because we generational curses, and this is the perfect situation to kind of help breaking that generational curse. So
Yeah.
that's kind of why people still have that stigma, because it's just been generations upon generations of not for people that look like us not to seek help from these mental health professionals, because they think they can keep it in the family or more religion.
Right. What I have seen lately, however, is, you know, people are starting to be open to having those conversations. You have people like Taraji P. Hill. What's up,
Henson.
Taraji P.
Instant.
Yeah,
Henson, right? And then you have like Charlemagne the God, who has been talking a lot about mental health.
yeah.
You know, I believe that we're starting to, I guess, come over the hill, so to speak, to say, okay, this is okay. Why do you think we're starting to turn that corner, though? Do you believe it's, less of a stigma now, or do you just think more of the conversation is just starting to happen?
I think because of the trailblazers like Taraji and Charlemagne talking about it more on the media, because now it's cool to talk about mental health, which is great. Because
Yeah.
I'm because the organizations I'm a part of, one is Taraji's foundation, and which we're going to be kicking off a great campaign in the next couple of days so far about mental health. But these trailblazers that are out there in the media, they're the ones that's really helping break that stigma, from mental to talk about mental health, because you know they experience it themselves. And I think, again, we're trying to push a change from our parents and our grandparents, where we're trying to change the habits, and in order to do that, we've got to talk about mental health. It's one of the most important things. We talk about physical health all the time, but at the end of the day, mental, you are your mind. If your mind's not doing well, you got to take care of it.
Yeah.
Everybody.
You mentioned something a little bit ago when you were talking about how as some Christians or religions or whatever, you're told to pray about it, and that kind of hit home with me because I struggled with some issues and I felt like something was wrong with me personally because I was experiencing, as a Christian, experiencing depression and felt like I shouldn't be. And I
Yeah.
think in the as a Christian, we grow up with this culture of just pray about it. So how can we change the narrative in the Christian world to seek
Yeah.
help and not just you can pray and seek help.
Absolutely. Well, I'm I'm a Christian as well. I'm very devoted as well. And what I tell people, like, why can't a therapist be the answer to your prayers? Why does it have to be, us versus them? And it's not like that. We're so geared and conditioned to always have, one side versus the other. You can coincide. And I think that's the best thing possible, having religion, and also knowing you can go still see a therapist, because that, one thing is more spirituality. The other one, you talk about, some real death, some real situations that, that professionals like myself go to school for years to help you with a better lifestyle. So I think the best way is going hand in hand, and I think more new age type of individuals are really pushing for that. So
Mhm.
I got a question for you. So, as both Lauren and Charles said about, it's becoming more of a conversation piece with, mental health issues, as well as within the Black community. We were basically taboo that we don't get mental health. now that I see Hollywood is starting to create things about, the Black past and history, but they're also putting out a lot of movies that to me trigger the PTSD, the mental health, all of those. So there was just a movie that came out, and we had a discussion about the movie Them, that I felt personally that it triggers the things of our past and demoralizing the Black people in our communities. What do you think about how Hollywood has approached it? That if we are healing and coming out of this, does that sometimes trigger us and turn us back and reinforce the anger?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, what the media does is, whatever's hot, they try to incorporate off it and try to capitalize off of it. They see this trend happening, and they see that people are getting attention. Like, the most profitable thing that we have right now is our attention. Everybody's fighting for our attention. All the social media apps and and everything. So see that this is the topic to kind of help gain our attention, and if it's going to also bring up some of these feelings that sometimes they feel like, okay, that's going to make them want to watch more, which usually happens, and they talk about it because we bad news, we talk about you know negativity and bad things more than we talk about good things because it's more interesting
Yeah.
in our fight. But yeah, that it's they do that to trigger us. My recommendation is you don't have to always watch like this murder porn. You know what I mean? We don't have to watch these types of situations, these things that's going to help you. It's going to have you feel just traumatized, or re-traumatize you. You could take a break from that, and I feel like you can take those things in doses.
Right, right, right. You said something, or you used the term trauma. There's this catchphrase going around, trauma porn, and and as it relates to these movies that are triggering,
Yeah,
is it okay to, you know, with your professional opinion, and we'll go into like your credentials and your credentialing in a minute, but is it okay to push yourself, so to speak, through the thick of the woods to understand that this is what it is and get through it? Or is it something that you should kind of say, no, this is not what I need to see. This is not something that I want to see, so I shouldn't indulge in it. What's the
yeah.
better
So
position to take? Should you go ahead and push through it so you can see and understand what's going on? What are the things that has been affecting, say, for example, a Black community? Or again, should we say, these are the things that we need to stay away from because they are triggering?
yeah, I mean, if it's I think everything that's been put out, we've seen before. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's nothing new. So if we're re-traumatizing ourselves, it's not going to be helpful. I am a person that encourages people to not look away from their own traumas and look towards it and process it. But there are some things that if it's we've seen these stories before. We've seen these situations before. So it's kind of like, why continue to bring ourselves to this if we already know what's going to happen? We already know what is the outcome. So I would say, one, it depends on the person and their experience, and how much trauma that they have experienced in the past. You know, I don't feel like people should always re-traumatize themselves. But if you feel like you need to be able to do this to get over this trauma, not allow this trauma to take over your life, and this is part of like your process, then go for it.
So I like to talk about solutions and remedies, right? And so, just a last question based around the context that we're talking about through the lens, how can we remedy the issue of feeling the overly triggering sensation of watching movies that we have been seeing over and over again of our our ancestors being enslaved, our ancestors being whipped, our ancestors being raped, things of that nature? How can we as a people get over, which is probably a bad word, or a word that I shouldn't use, because you have the conversation of we shouldn't have to get over it, right? This is something that, that has happened to us, and we need to address it, right? But how can a group of people start to feel, and heal from the past, you know, challenges that we had to go through, or that our ancestors had to go through during that time?
I mean, I would say we have to look at what the future is going to look like. I think it's not about getting over it, but it's about how we can utilize our knowledge from the past to, continue to shape a better future. And also making sure that our next generation is not forgetting, our history. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Yeah.
you. Yep.
We have to make sure that our next generation is not forgetting our history, because like so much history in the past have been skewed or whitewashed or forgotten, and so I would say we still need this information, but we don't want to live in that past. So we can look in the past, we learn from it, so we can better the future.
Hmm.
So that's what that's my because again, like a lot of our history in the past have been whitewashed. Like a lot of people haven't didn't know that the Lone Ranger was actually depicted off of a black man. You know what I mean? But Hollywood had him, as a white man, and they were
Look like we lost them
and
again.
Hmm.
with his history of that. So we can't forget about what happened in the past, but we can't live in it, because when you live in any type of situation other than right here right now, that's when you feel off. That's when it doesn't work
You
well.
relive. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um.
I think this was a good comment. She said spiritual, mental, and social evolution. Being able to, kind of grow through and evolve from some of the issues that we have, and that we have seen, and what's pretty much the next step. Uh, I want to talk a little bit about, oh, go ahead, Sparkle, looked like you had a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if there's a person who's listening to us right now and they're like, no, I don't need therapy, but they're suicidal, they're depressed, what are the three things that you would convince someone to say, this is, I don't know if it's affirmation, but this is something that you could say briefly to say, this is why you would need therapy?
It's a good question. I do believe, well, with suicide, that's a big thing. Anything dealing with safety, that definitely has to be looked at. I would say if something is interfering with your daily living and you would like to get change, like to change, there's so much more representation right now than it was in the past, that you can be able to seek a counselor that or a therapist that looks like you, and and I think everybody needs a non-judgmental person, that you can just bounce some ideas off of. I go to therapy once a month. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so
As a
so
therapist.
as a therapist, absolutely.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because I'm human too. I bleed just like everybody else bleeds. So I need to be able to unload, and my wife doesn't deserve me unloading only on her. I need to have like a professional to be able to bounce some ideas off of. So I think everybody needs that access to that individual that can really help change their lives. So it doesn't have to be for rich people, for white people, for crazy people. I think it's for everybody. Everybody should go to a doctor, right? Even if you're not sick, you go to you do a yearly checkup, so and just to make sure everything's okay. So the fact that we think that we have to be mentally on the brink of just a breakdown in order to see a therapist. No, I think everybody needs to do so. I'd rather be proactive than reactive. Take care of something that's a little bit before it grows into something crazier.
Yeah, no
Oh,
doubt.
in Philly, the politicians are saying that we're slated to see the highest murder rate in Philadelphia's history this year. So we have some of our youth who are desensitized to murder and gun violence. And there's also some talks of like some sort of conflict resolution system to resolve some of the street conflicts that are leading to increasing homicides. So what are your thoughts on conflict resolution? And do you believe it will help to reduce the homicide rate in Philadelphia?
Yeah, that's some good questions. I think that a lot has to happen other than just conflict resolution to kind of help reduce that. You know, the thing is, idle time's the devil's playground. You got too much time on your hand, you're going to, not do the right thing. Um, when you're bored, what is there for some of these youth to do? You know, if
Mm,
there's nothing to do, then they're gonna go. There is gonna be mischief. They are gonna be, have so much time to plot on just dumb things. That's one portion.
mm,
Also, anger. When go through with death, that's grief, that's a trauma, and there's so much unresolved trauma that goes on. And it goes into rage and anger, and anger is an energy. It doesn't die; it just has to transfer. And so if you don't give somebody a proper outlet to transfer that energy, it's gonna come out some other way, and it comes out in this type of situation. So with the term conflict resolution, it's a vague term, but it's about what do you do to make sure that it's because it sounds good. We're gonna do conflict resolution over here, but what does that look like? You know what I mean? I think a lot of people one definitely need therapy, need something else to do, especially for our youth. And you know, I would say we can see some type of improvement, but I think there's so much more that needs to happen. Nothing's
mm.
impossible. It's not figured out yet. So I feel that we just need to continue brainstorming to help out our youth.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like, I think they just don't know what to do. And I feel like they're kind of grasping at straws, just trying to figure out like what would help. But like you said, it has to definitely has to be more than just a conflict resolution. Like, open up opportunities for them. Like, I feel like change will happen. Especially post COVID and kids are going back to school because we're losing a lot of our younger youth, the ones that are just entering their adolescent years as a teenagers. And
Mhm.
that's heartbreaking, and it needs to be looked at as the same way they're looking at COVID as a pandemic is the same way they need to look at this.
I wholeheartedly agree. You got to think like we've been in a house for like a year. You know what I'm saying? Like things have been shut down. So you have to think. So many of us had so much cabin fever, and also us as Black people were naturally vitamin D deficient, and vitamin D deficiency is correlated with mood.
Mm.
You know, so we're more moodier. And so we're inside. We don't get any sunlight. We have nothing to do. Everything
Looks like.
Yeah.
of
Frozen.
people, with George Floyd and so many other people. So there's so much rage that happens, and then like, okay, everybody go outside, and then you can't expect them. You can't expect nothing but that this type of mischief to happen. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
You're really well credentialed. You obtained an undergraduate in psychology from Bloomsburg University and a graduate degree in clinical and counseling psychology from Chestnut Hill. One of the things that you focus on, I want to pivot to that is because we're kind of talking about it. I think it's an excellent transition to talk about Black men healing and Black men trauma. Uh, that's a lot different than uh, and I'm sure some parallels to our sisters and the traumas that they go through. But specifically, when it comes to Black men or Black male trauma, what are the things that you see most come to the conversation or highlighted as men?
Absolutely. I think our Black kings need so much work just because again goes back to the conditioning of people telling us to toughen up, not show your
Yeah.
emotions. If you show your emotions, you're weak. And what it does is it just creates just unhealthy relationships, creates unhealthy ways to cope. And I'm so happy I got involved in these two other organizations, Black Men Heal and the Boris Henson Foundation, because what it did, it provided me opportunities to see so many of my Black kings. And you know, the reason why I was so passionate about doing so is because I read a meme. I think I was just scrolling on Gram years ago. I read a meme and it really stuck with me. It said Black people go to jail, white people go to therapy.
Yeah.
And that when I heard that, and it talking with my Black men, I see when I see myself with them, but I see how just some certain words that I can say, or just even that platform, can just change their just their view on just things on life, and it's so rewarding. So I think the population that needs the work and the help of our Black men, because there's so much against us, and it feels like everything's against us. So we just need to be able to come together and then provide these great skills to know that you are worth it, and.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think when it comes to the sisters are on it. They go to the doctors more than men. They look at their mental health more than men. Why do you think it's an issue with us? We talk about, and I grew up like that. Kind of the toughen up, idea. However, there is this other discussion of, men now being able or being challenged in trying to understand what their masculinity is, or trying to interpret what their masculinity is, right? And you have these catchphrases like, toxic masculinity, right? Which you have men, well, trying to interpret, well, if I can't do this, well, what makes me who I am as a man, as a Black man, right? And so how do you help men, or how can you help them interpret what it is to be, what makes them who they are as it relates to their masculinity and pride?
Absolutely. I think it all goes to self-esteem. I've learned that the most self-conscious men are the ones that try to be hyper masculine.
Right,
Because they try to mask, you know, just some of the insecurity.
right,
So I think the definition of what a real man is. I mean, it's so general. It's like a spectrum of that.
right,
So I'm just about. I push more about being the real you, and the real you is being able to face your fears, being able to speak up about what concerns you, and not just tuck it in and keep it in, and just deal with it yourself. Ask for help. I push that to help people know their true self, that you're not in this alone, and to know what is a healthy relationship and what's not, and I kind of go with that.
and ironically, you saying that, you have men that feels that it's less than a man to ask for help.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so there is trauma there. There is this residual, uh, the challenges for men to say what makes them them, because they don't know. They don't know how to identify with whom they are because
Yeah.
of, their predecessors or the people who come before them. What are the roles? What is to say that this is what a man should be?
Yeah, facts. I agree. I think that the roles worked in the past for them, for people. But this is a new time. You gotta go with the times. If you're stuck in the past, you're not gonna grow. You'll be obsolete like Nokia and Blockbuster, right? You know what I'm saying? Back in the day, they worked for them, man. But this is a new model, and being able, it's a lot harder to ask for help and to keep things in yourself. To keep things by yourself. So changing that perspective for people, that's the goal. And you'll see so much growth in just you by knowing that you can delegate some of these things and know what you have control over and what you don't. So
Right.
what happens is, when people, they just hoard all their problems, some of these things you can't control. If you don't like that it's raining, you can't go and put your fist in the air and say, "Hey, stop raining," and the rain's gonna stop. You know what I'm saying? So what you have to do, if you don't like it's raining, you get an umbrella and you walk inside. So it's about knowing what you can control and what you cannot. And so being able to talk about and process that allows you to delegate these things so you can feel, you can feel better.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Because you talking, you preaching right now, my brother. Because for me, and I see, Sizzle, you had a question. For me, I think I'm sure it's a lot of brothers that's like me. It's the letdown, right? For to say to somebody, let go and ask for help. But I guess it's the pride. I'm not sure what it is, but it's the letdown that if you ask for help and they let you down, then for you it's the, well, I should have did it myself anyway, right?
Absolutely. But you said that's a very common, answer to what you just said, because in the past, a lot of us have been let down by maybe some father figures and just from some other people.
That's
So
right.
we were so used to doing things by ourselves. So it's all about trust, trusting the person you're going to disclose this with. I'm not saying go and express yourself to anybody in these streets, but it's about who you trust. So that's why I'm real big with any of my guests that I talk with. I'm real big with building up that therapeutic relationship, because if you don't trust me, listen, you're not gonna you know do what I'm asking you to do. You're not gonna disclose. So trust is the biggest thing. You know what I mean?
Uh, Sizzle, before you ask this question, I want to bring this up because a lot of men feel this way. She said sometimes folks don't subscribe to being vulnerable, especially when it comes to men. And we're talking about the idea of even hypermasculinity, right? In the context of hypermasculinity, and you're telling those men or those alpha men, whatever, however you define what an alpha man is, to tell that man to be vulnerable. Trust can be an issue. Expectation elude. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on that?
So with trust and because it cut off a little bit, but I think I got a good grasp of what you said. So pretty much saying kind of like trust with individuals who were like what we call alpha male type of
Right.
ordeal. And what happens is it's because there have been something in the past that they may have disclosed, maybe something that they disclosed and they felt like it was being weaponized against them. And so sometimes they hold that and they're like, I'm never trusting anybody any of my words again. You know what I mean? And again, you know the ideal of what a alpha male is. I think that it's an outdated description. You know,
Mhm.
alpha males, when you think about it, like, okay, I'm hunter and gatherer. I'm the one
Right.
that
Right.
is the breadwinner. I do this. I care for my family. Like, yeah, it's a new time. You know what I mean? And so that description has to also, you know, um, you know, change as well with being able to, still protect your family, still protect mine, but when it's time to express yourself, you can be able to do that as well. Like being able to be versatile.
Understanding.
Hmm.
That's right, gentlemen. That means we have to evolve. We have to grow. Go ahead, Sizzle.
I was just gonna ask because we have some black fathers out here, and one thing I notice about sometimes about some black fathers is that they want their black boys to be tough, and how can for the fathers that want to create, I guess, basically like a well balanced kid who is has that appropriate toughness when it's necessary and still be able to feel emotion, not just as a young black man, but as a human being. How can they talk to their children and just, create that well balanced kid that needs to have emotion and needs to be strong?
Absolutely, that's a great question. It's not. I don't think it's about only talking about. It's about modeling it. You know what I'm saying? So, you could be stern with your son, but also tell him that you love him. You can still express yourself to your son and your child, but also model, that you're not gonna flip out every time, every little deal that happens. Like you can control your emotions, but when it is time, when it's dealing with safety or anything like that, you're able to raise your voice. You're able to to be assertive and not just aggressive. So it's all about modeling that for your young black king, because that's what they see. They're very observant, so they're gonna see, they're gonna watch you. They're not gonna really hear you. Everything, it's gonna feel like when you're talking with them, it's like the peanuts, wah, 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 right? So it's more about that action and what they're seeing. Like, if my dad's giving me a hug, but also if I get in trouble, I gotta do like 30 push-ups. You know what I'm saying? So you can still, that's how you ensure the balance. Providing that love and emotion to your child, but also knowing when it's time to be aggressive, when it's time to be assertive.
Uh, I love that you put it like that. And I also love that you are calling, our black men kings, because
Absolutely.
that's one thing that I talk to my son when I tell him, like, you my young black king. And I want him to understand like who he is, his heritage, his lineage, and what he comes from. So I think that's just awesome. And you did mention earlier in the show some advocacy or support groups. Could you mention that again for the black men that are wanting to get help and
Absolutely.
and
Yeah,
support?
absolutely. So Black Men Heal, it's in the tri-state area. We provide 8 free mental health sessions for Black men. It's a nonprofit organization. Go to the website, you sign up. It was on the Breakfast Club with Charlamagne the God. I think maybe last year or so. So he's very involved in that as well. He donated some good money to that, as well as a lot of people have been sending out, like Ariana Grande posted on her stuff as well. So it's a really good organization that really helps black men who aren't used to doing the therapy, or maybe it was an excuse like, oh, it costs too much. No, it's completely free. And also, in addition to Black Men Heal, like underneath it, we every Sunday we have this thing called King's Corner, and and it's pretty much just a safe space, just for Black men to talk, um, and just about everyday issues. Every week there's a special guest um, speaker that just talks about a certain issue. It's really good. It's very powerful, and
Hmm.
it's very welcoming too. So
Wow.
so we have that for our black men. And I think I told you, um, starting on Monday with the Boris Henson Foundation, Taraji's Foundation, I'm going to be helping with this campaign called the Unspoken Curriculum, and it
Mm.
talks about mental health with Black youth. And we're going to be you're probably going to be seeing it all over social media as well. It's just going to be talking about bringing attention to you know our black youth who feel silenced, who feel that there's like implicit bias inside the curriculum. Like, when you read the curriculum, you don't see that representation, and how it affects our mental health growing up as well. So I'm super excited to be helping with that campaign, and just the organizations that I'm doing.
Awesome.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you, my brother. I appreciate you, King. I like to say thank you for coming to the show. I think that you said a lot that I even learned from you, and I think that people and our sisters have to give men room to be vulnerable. I think oftentimes men feel that they can't be vulnerable to in front of sisters because it makes them feel, or they believe, right? They interpret as them being vulnerable, that the sisters may think that it's them being weak. And I believe a lot of men feel that way. And it's, the sister just brought it up. She said, you know, um, and I think it's a great, help may be a process, repetitious encouragement. I think the sisters have to, you know, give that give that space, give men that safe space to be vulnerable, and let it process and encourage them to do so. And I think that would help out a lot. Yeah, we need the sisters. There's no way around it, and that's part of the community. We talk about the different sexes, right? However you identify, but through the context of what we're talking about, you got your men over here, you got your women over here, right? But it never seems to be this community of engagement, of conversation. So I will always speak in a context of This is a community, and that's how we need to heal. So we need to work together as such.
Absolutely, absolutely. I encourage everyone to continue to invest in their mental health, their mental wealth. Just try to find any type of way to be able to do so. You are your mind. So if your mind's not feeling well, you're not going to feel well. So thank you so much for
Fantastic.
having
Mhm.
Absolutely. So how can they get in contact with you? Where can they find all your stuff? You're an author. How can they find your book? All that good old stuff.
Yes, yes. So, you can hit me up on the gram at Fonz the Therapist. I just started a TikTok, so I was a little late in the game, but that's also Fonz the Therapist. Hit me up on Clubhouse, Fonz Therapy. Just Google Fonzo Nathan, Brightside Counseling. My book is it's for other therapists who are trying to get into the private practice game, and how they can provide a success, how they can get successful private practice. We're lucky as Brightside Counseling to start from one day, it was one client a week a couple of years ago, like 9, 10 years ago, and now we're grossing over $1 million a year, just from just the hard work that we're doing. So we're trying to push that for our future people who may think that you can't make any money in mental health, which is very wrong. So
Hmm.
thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Alphonso Nathan. Make sure you go follow him, support, and listen to more of his information, all of the good and empowered and powerful information, especially as it relates to us men. We need it. We need to grow. We need to mature. We need to pivot with where we are in these times. It's different times now, so we have to think differently. So I appreciate you, my friend. I appreciate you, King. And one thing I say to everybody who come to the show, once you're here, you're a friend to the show, so you always welcome to come back. And kudos to you. I gotta give a shout out to your PR. She held you down, my brother. She made sure you came to the show.
Absolutely. Shout out to my PR. She definitely has been. We got some good things going on this month right now. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'm definitely hopefully I'll come back to the show and provide some more support.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Fantastic, my friend. Well, you take care, and it was a pleasure having you. So,
Thank you.
ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We want you to just hold on tight. We got some more information. We got some good news and bad news coming up. So don't go nowhere. We'll be right back, y'all.
What's going on, you guys? This is Bridget Kelly, and you are locked into We Talk Weekly.